company dismissed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Well, welcome back to the Sky Blue History Podcast with me, Claudio, and of course, the fountain of all knowledge, Jim Brown, Coventry City's club historian. Jim is more Trevi Fountain, while I'm pretty much disused and unloved. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe and tell all your mates and fellow Sky Blue fans. It really helps the show grow. In this episode, we'll be taking a look back at the two-part interview with former chairman Brian Richardson. We'll be giving a light coating, nothing too heavy, but enough to reflect on the reactions at the stories and the bits that got everyone talking. We'll also be tackling a question loads of fans have been asking recently, and that is, what's the longest Coventry City have stayed at the top of any league? I'm sure Jim will have some answers on that. And more importantly, are we anywhere near the actual record this season? Plus, we'll answer another popular one, which was, when was the last time Coventry beat a top six side away while also being in the top six ourselves? And whether there have been any others in living memory. And with West Brom coming up this Saturday, I've got a question of my own lined up for Jim, one I've been saving especially for this episode. Jim, it's
Good evening.
Good evening, Jim. Yes. Looking back on the two-part interview with Brian Richardson, what was your take on the whole thing?
Well, obviously Brian Richardson is a bit of a Marmite character, I guess. Some people think he ruined the club. Other people think he did a good job while he was there. I think it was interesting to hear his side of things. I thought his memory was pretty good. It was lacking a bit on the Chris Marsden transfer and a couple of other things, but generally I thought it was very good. He had quite forthright views on some individuals in the boardroom who he thinks hastened his defenestration, you might call it, in January 2002. I think what I would say is that when he did arrive at the club as part of the Peter Robbins team, the club weren't in a very good state. I think it's fair to say John Poynton had appointed Terry Butcher and things weren't going particularly well on the pitch. And I think it was fairly quickly realised, and Butcher was gone. We had the court case, which I think that was really interesting to hear about. And I think it's fair to say that Brian, by appointing Bobby Gould and Phil Neal, steadied the ship. Under Phil Neal, we did have that excellent finish in '94. But then it all went a bit pear-shaped. But I think it's fair to say that his next move, bringing in Ron Atkinson, really took the club to a new level. And we became a really strong competitive side in the division again. Maybe not so much under Ron, but I think Ron put the foundations in. Obviously, he started bringing in higher profile players, and Gordon carried that on. And sadly, it ended with relegation. What did you think about the things he was telling us about some of the transfers?
The Dion Dublin one was interesting for me because I've heard Dion talk about this and this whole thing about the contract being offered, and he said it was taken away at the last minute. Now, listening to Brian, it does sound like, because I think Dion was on 14,000 a week at one stage. I actually found bizarrely this week, I found an old newspaper with a whole load of what Premier League strikers were earning, and it got Dion down as 14,000. With obviously Shearer was up the top somewhere, and the likes of Cantona and those guys. And it got 14,000. It does sound like we did offer him 20,000, but I think Brian was impatient and basically took away the offer, which hastened the move, I think, out of the club. But it did feel like somebody was pushing the move along anyway. You know, whether or not it was the agent in the background, all the rest of it. I know he wasn't very keen on the agents, but you know, I don't think we got it right either with some of the foreign players. It was strange. I mean, as a fan, we're watching these transfers come in, and you love it, don't you? You're seeing all these new players come in. We couldn't believe it. We're signing players, and supposedly, you know, the likes of Richardson turns up, and even Salako and a few of the early signings. We're thinking, oh, this is good. This is great. This is what we wanted for years. Players that other clubs have heard of for a start, not reserve team players. And it was great. And you don't care where the money's coming from, do you, as a fan? You just want the club to sign players. And I think he did as much as he could to get us going again, basically. And we were unfortunate with some of our signings. Some of them are just injuries, weren't they? I mean, it's just you can't bargain for that, can you? It's just one of those things, isn't it? Not all transfers going to work out, and possibly the worst ones were the foreign ones. To be honest, we didn't have many great foreign signings.
Well, I could give you some names that would poo-poo that idea. Magnus Hedman.
Okay.
Roland Nielsen.
Okay.
George Boateng. Okay, there were Mustafa Hadji, Yosef Chippo.
These are the obvious ones.
Yeah. Okay, there were some not so good ones, but I think, as we've discussed before, buying foreign players I think it's a higher risk than buying English players.
Yeah.
I think they all take time to adapt. We've seen it in the last few years, haven't we?
Yeah.
With Vic and Gus to an extent, and others. So no, I don't. I think it wasn't a perfect record, but I don't think they had the analysis in those days that we have now, and they relied heavily on the chief scout, Ray Clark, the European scout.
Yeah.
Didn't they? I thought the Robert Yarni story is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. With the Seville owner.
It's like the Godfather.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's difficult because obviously the ground sale and all the rest of it, and people not really understanding what happened. And unless you get all parties around the table, we probably never will we, Jim? Because
no, we won't.
Because the one bit I didn't understand, I thought about this afterwards, when he says we weren't going to be homeless, basically. We'd still have somewhere to play had the move not gone through to the arena. But then does that mean we were never going to own the stadium then? Because we'd sold the land and everything.
No, I think he indicated that there was a buyback clause.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I think that was he made that quite clear that we would have stayed at Haifa Road, as we did till 2005. That was about 7 years after the original sale to the building company, McLean's, wasn't it? McLean's.
Yeah. But I think it's tricky. I think he did as much as he could with what we had. By the sounds of it, we didn't have a lot because we were borrowing off people to buy players, to fund the club. Yeah. We didn't have enough income.
Yeah, and I think I think yeah, he made decisions, and that's what business people have to do. I think the decision to replace Phil Neal with Ron Atkinson was probably a decision which kept us in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think it's highly likely we'd have been relegated. We were on a dreadful run of form. You know, if you remember, Ron brought in, you mentioned Kevin Richardson, and there was David Burrows, wasn't there, as well?
Yeah.
Two really old, you know, old hands to steady the ship. I thought the other interesting, the funny one was Bellamy and John Fashanu. I
Yeah.
thought that was fascinating. Gordon rang Bobby Robson to ask. And that was the Chippo story, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Chippo story. But they just gave Fashanu short thrift, didn't they?
Well, because I think in Bellamy's book, I heard him in an interview saying that he was still hanging on for a move to Newcastle, even though when he signed for us. So there was probably something in it, you know, where
Yeah.
it's interesting that he went to Newcastle straight after he left us.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
we did sign. I didn't realise when we signed him, he'd just recovered from an ACL. I don't think a lot of people had realised how bad an injury he'd had.
Yeah, I think he'd only played two games the previous season, hadn't he?
Yeah, because I think when you looked at his record before that, I think it was an exciting signing, and you know, and he was young. That's the other thing; he was young.
Yeah.
And there was a lot put on his shoulders, and you know, and if you look at his record afterwards, he did all right, didn't he?
He did. He did. I think it's fair to say that we never really recovered from losing Keane and McAllister, did we?
No, that's the fact you pointed out, losing all those goals.
Yeah.
And if you look at the squad we've got now, if you lose that many goals from this team, you know, we won't be top of the league. It's simple as that, really.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think he didn't talk much about his departure, other than he felt that he was stitched up by Derek Higgs and Mike McGinnity. But I do remember the annual general meeting just before Christmas 2001. And if I remember rightly, Derek Higgs was up for re-election to the board. And there was quite I wouldn't say there was a toxic atmosphere in the room that night, because we'd been relegated, because we weren't going to go straight back. You know, Strachan had been sacked. I think people, a lot of the fans were after Richardson, and I think that sort of atmosphere came into the meeting that night. And I remember that on a show of hands, Derek Higgs wasn't re-elected. Of course, the board sitting at the top table all had the votes, so it didn't make any difference. But I think that show of hands really embarrassed Derek Higgs. He was not a happy man that day, and I think, well, let's face it was only about 6 weeks later that Brian was shown the door.
And I suppose it didn't help, did it, that on the day we were kind of relegated at Villa Park, where after the game, where Brian had said to Rob Gurney, we're going to have some fun in the Championship, which is not what you want to hear, is it really? And of course, I think it just escalated from there. I remember listening to the interview when they played it back afterwards, because I was at Villa Park, and you kind of think, I can't believe you just said that. Yeah, this is like the worst nightmare for any City fan in that stadium that day.
He probably thought he was, putting on a brave face and trying to rally the fans, but it just, well, you're right, it wasn't the right thing to say.
No. And I think there may have been some champagne flowing as well for some reason, but yes, well, it's hospitality, isn't it? But yeah, I think overall, I think he came across really well.
Mhm.
I think he could tell us as much as he could tell us without. And it's a while back, isn't it? I mean,
It is. It is.
I
Yeah, and
was amazed.
he
I remembered how much he spent on players and how much he got for them.
yes, yes. It is that is interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, and he's not a young man, and to remember a lot of that stuff is quite impressive. Um, uh, one of his talking about his signings, I see one of them. One of those signings has got a new job today.
Who is that?
He's the new Norwich manager,
Oh, of course, yes.
Philippe Clement.
So he's gone from one disaster to try and stop another one.
Yeah, yeah. He had an impressive record in Belgium. I think he won the league 3 times with various clubs, but it didn't really work at Rangers, did it? Um, but I think Rangers are a bit of a basket case anyway. But yeah, he's the new Norwich boss, which is interesting.
Yeah, see, well, their fortunes need to turn around really quickly, unlike ours, Jim, because we're sitting pretty at the top of the table. 15
Yeah.
games into the season, a third of the season gone. Of course, we extended our lead at the top of the championship to 5 points with an excellent win at Stoke the other Saturday, which I wouldn't say it surprised everybody, but the goal did when it came as late as it did. I think it was heading for a draw. It certainly
Mm,
felt that way. And of course, Ephraim Mason Clark, fantastic goal, absolutely beautiful finish.
mm.
Gave us the win. Now we're top of the table, and it's a bit of a remarkable start to the season, isn't it? Really.
It
So
is. Yeah, we talked about this before, haven't we? It's shades of 1937, and
yeah.
didn't quite break that unbeaten start of 15 games that season. But yeah, it's been marvelous, and um, in some ways, it's better than 1937 because I think we got more points, allowing for the 3 points for a win as opposed to 2 in those days. But yeah, I think we've got more points, more goals, and lots of excitement.
So I was asked by Miles Cadden, and I think several people have mentioned this about the length of time at the top of the table. And
Mm,
I said to him, I've got no idea. I'm going to ask Jim. So
mm,
hence the phone call on that Sunday morning. Say, Jim, what's the
yes.
longest we've stayed at the top of any division? Are we anywhere close?
Well, you actually have to go quite a long way back because, to be honest, we haven't been top of any division for very long in the last X years. Even in recent years when we won League One, but we only hit the top um, 2 or 3 weeks before the season was halted, didn't we?
Yeah.
Um, and then the other time we were top in the championship back in 2001 under Roland Nielsen. If you remember, we went top with a 2-0 win over Sheffield Wednesday at home, and then the following day, Wolves won on the Sunday and leapfrogged us. So we were top for less than 24 hours. Um, so, and of course, when we were in the top flight, we had a couple of times when we were top early season, but it wasn't for very long. So you have to go back to 1967 and the second division promotion season to find the last time we were longer at the top. Now I worked out that we can't not be top, or we can't lose top place at the moment until the Middlesbrough game a week tonight.
And that's if
So
of course, we need to lose games as well, don't we?
we'd have to lose. We'd have to lose both West Brom and Middlesbrough, and
Yeah.
Middlesbrough would have to win their 2 games. So it's going to be 52 days on the night of the Middlesbrough game that will have been top. Now, in 1967, we were top for 81 days.
Right.
And I'll talk a little bit about that instance. But the club record, was 3 years before that in the 1963-64 third division promotion season, when we were actually top for 157 days.
Blimey.
It's virtually not quite the whole season, but that's another story. Yeah, that's another story. So let's just talk about the 67 run, because the club had a poor start to the season in relative terms, and we had the Gibbo incident where Jimmy Hill dropped him and threatened to sell him, and Gibson asked for a transfer, and it looked like he was going. And then they patched things up, brought Gibbo back in, and we went on this amazing unbeaten run from November. 25 games unbeaten.
And I know, Jim, sorry, Jim, I know in one of the programs in that first half of the season where Jimmy Hill does that conversation with his daughter, doesn't he? Where she's asking why they all having a go at you, because obviously he's put Gibbo on the bench, or he's dropped him completely. And there's a whole thing about they don't know what they don't know what they're doing, basically. And which he then, at the end of the season, reproduces in the winning program at the end of the season to say, as a manager, I do know what I'm doing.
Well, Jimmy was getting a lot of stick that autumn. There's no question. He was under a lot of pressure because we were the favourites to go up. We'd missed out by 1 point the previous year, and in those days, the relegated clubs from the first division, there was no parachute money or anything like that. They were lucky if they went straight back up. Yeah. It wasn't anything like as common as these days. And if you take Wolves, who went up with us that season, they'd been relegated in 1965. It was their third season in the second division. So Jimmy was under pressure, and bringing Gibbo back placated a lot of the criticism. But even when they brought Gibbo back, we were seventh in the table. I wouldn't say we were far off the top, but remember, it was only 2 points for a win those days. In actual fact, the Gates had dropped as well, and his comeback game, it was under 20,000 for that game against Cardiff. And it wasn't until we had a very good Christmas. We beat Rotherham. We got a very good draw at Rotherham. We beat Portsmouth 5-1, and then the following week we went to St Andrews, and a draw was good enough for us to go top of the table for the first time, take over from Wolves, and we were obviously on the unbeaten run. The following week we beat Norwich 2-1 at home with an 89th minute winner from Ernie Machin. Then we drew at Bristol City 2-2. We won 1-0 at Bury with a late Ronnie Rees goal. In between that, we'd lost to Newcastle in the Cup. And if you remember, that's when Bobby Gould got the poison pen letters, got the boos for missing chances. And in fact, Jimmy dropped Bobby Gould the following week at Bury. He was on the subs bench. So the week after, we beat Preston 2-1 with late goals from Machin and Gould. Then we won at Charlton 2-1. We beat Carlisle 2-1, another late goal, Ernie Machin this time. We drew 0-0 at Northampton, a 1-1 draw at Bolton. So things are, a couple of draws there, things looking a bit dicey. And then we went to Blackburn, who were third in the table, and that was the crucial match. Winning that game, gave us that. It was a 4-pointer really against Blackburn,
Yeah.
and it put us well clear of Blackburn. But now I think that was Easter Saturday. Now on Easter Monday, I think Wolves had a game in hand and had it on the Easter Monday and won to leapfrog us. So they kept pace with us. I don't think in that run of ours, I think they had a similar sort of run. So we beat Northampton on Easter Tuesday night, but remained second. So it was probably on goal difference, I think, or goal average in those days, wasn't it? And we stayed second right through how many games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. We still trailed Wolves, even beating them in the match of the century. We were second after that game. And it wasn't until the final day, we played Millwall at home, and they played away to Crystal Palace. If you remember the story, we obviously kicked off at 3:15 in those days. Palace kicked off at 3 o'clock. By the time we kicked off against Millwall, Wolves were already losing. And all of a sudden, the door opened for the title, and we took it. Wolves lost 4-1 at Palace. We won 3-1 against Millwall, and lifted the trophy. So that run from the 7th of January at St Andrews, when we went top. I always remember coming back on the Priory coach that day, because Nuneaton Borough had played in the FA Cup and beaten Rotherham.
Right.
I'm sure that was the same day. Because for some reason, the third round of the Cup, which traditionally was the first Saturday in January, it was delayed, and we played our third round tie on the last Saturday in January. I can't remember why that was the case, but so Nuneaton beat Rotherham in the second round on the day we went top. And I think they got, was it Rotherham or was it Swansea? It might have been Swansea. They beat them both that season. So 7th of January we go top, and we didn't lose it until the 27th of March. So 81 days, I make that.
That's and of course that's our longest unbeaten run, isn't it? As a club that season.
Yes.
And we didn't really hammer anybody, did we? In that sequence.
Do you know, we didn't. And that's something a lot of fans I don't think they appreciate. It was late home winners against Norwich, against Preston, against Carlisle. That's 3 in a row where we scored 80, 88th, 89th minute winners. We got one after we dropped to second place. We played Derby at home, and Derby had worked us out. They played really well, and we needed a late equaliser there to get a point. But they always, Jimmy's side always managed to pull something extra out to keep that run going. It was a great run, fantastic run. So should we talk about the 64 run or the 63-64 run? Because that was longer. That was almost double that, 157 days. And I don't think that'll ever be bettered, will it?
No. So basically, the current team are on the third longest run. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Let's do 63, 64, which is
Well, obviously that was Division 3, and City went off like a train. They were. I'll just confirm that when they went top, it was the 8th of October. We were top early in the season because we won we won 6 out of our first 7 games.
Okay.
And drew the other one. So, you know, we had 13 points from the first 7 games. Remember, it was 2 points for a win. That obviously the equivalent of 19 points from the first 7 games.
Yeah.
Then we lost a couple. We lost at Hull. We'd lost at home to Mansfield. But by the 8th of October, when we beat Bristol City 2-1 at home, we went top. And we did hammer some teams that autumn. We beat Shrewsbury 8-1. We did slip up against Colchester. That was a bad defeat. But we had a fantastic November. We did our usual trick against Peterborough at home. After being 2-0 down, we won 3-2.
Yes.
And we beat Bristol Rovers 4-2 at home, who are no slouches. In between, we'd won 6-1 at Trowbridge in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
In the following midweek, we played Kaiserslautern in a friendly at Highfield Road. We won 8-1. Hudson got a hat-trick that night. He got a hat-trick against Trowbridge.
Yeah.
And then we went, the following Saturday, went to QPR, won 6-3 at Loftus Road, and Hudson got a third hat-trick. So you can see why he was the god. He was the favourite player.
If I was to say to you then 3 key players from that season, obviously he's number 1. I'd imagine Curtis. Anybody else? It comes to mind. A couple more, maybe.
Well, I think Ronnie Rees was a great provider. Well, both wingers actually, Ronnie Rees and Willie Humphries, were great providers for George.
They're both international, weren't they, Jim? Both.
They were, yes, yeah. Willie was an Irish international. Ronnie was Welsh international. But you know, John Sillip in the team, Mick Kearns. Brian Hill, Ronnie Farmer, all 4 of those had come, you know, Jimmy Hill had inherited those from the Billy Frith days. So QPR was a big statement win, especially winning in London. The London press were very, very impressed with City after that result. And they stayed top. Again, though, it was close results. It was 1-0 against Walsall, a 1-1 draw at Barnsley, 3-1 at home to Barnsley, 3-0 at home to Millwall on the 3rd of January. That was a night game. And that night, City went, just get this correct, I think it was... 8 points. We were 8 points clear on the 3rd of January.
So 2 points for a win. That's a hell of a gap.
Yeah. In today's money, that's 14 points.
I can hear a but coming. Because the ending wasn't as. It was a close run thing, wasn't it, that season?
Oh God! Well, it all fell apart. Really,
of course it did. With the decorations.
Is it 10 or 11 without a win?
Okay. And the reason, did we lose any players with injuries or just
no? Just the form went. The form went
Interesting.
completely. And Jimmy tried everything. He even brought in hypnotists.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we couldn't win to save our lives. And it culminated. That was the 3rd of January. We beat Millwall to go 8 points clear. We kept top place until the 12th of March, 13th of March, a Friday night against Southend, and Dave Meeson had been brought back into goal. He had an absolute stinker. We lost 5-2 to Southend at home. In front of 28,000. The fans had stayed with the team. Well, we were still top. What's there not to like? The following day, we lost top spot to Crystal Palace. So that was the 14th of March, and we were in second place. The form had picked up a little bit. We did lose at Bournemouth. Here's the reason why the form picked up, because Jimmy went into the transfer market.
Okay.
I think he was getting desperate. Yeah, this team just can't win again. So he signed George Kirby, centre forward.
Okay.
And he signed John Smith from Tottenham, midfield. In those days, he called them midfield generals.
Yeah.
He'd be a sort of Matty Grimes type player.
Was he in the double winning team? Was he?
Well, he was in the squad maybe, but he didn't get. I don't think he played. But a tidy midfield player, went on to have a very good career at Swindon. Won the League Cup with Swindon in '69. Okay. So Smith and Kirby came in. Kirby made his debut at Bournemouth in a 2-1 loss. Home debut, he gets a hat-trick. They beat Oldham 4-1. Back on the rails, must be. And Smith was quite tidy too. So then the form, got a draw at Port Vale. We got a draw at home to Port Vale. Kirby scored again. Then we went to Bristol Rovers, 1-1-0. And on the 11th of April, we beat QPR 4-2 at home and went top again. Then we dipped. We drew at Millwall, the famous game where Ronnie Farmer missed his only penalty. The penultimate game, the famous game at Peterborough, where we lost. We took 12,000 fans, lost 2-0. That was midweek. And so it was all down to the final game, Colchester at home on the final day. And Crystal Palace and Watford. Well, Crystal Palace were top. Watford were third on our tail. They both lost. We beat Colchester 1-0 and we were champions. So it all ended well, just like '67.
But I suppose we deserved it, didn't we, really, because of the start we had. I know we had a bit of a blip, but...
Yeah. But, there are similarities with this season, aren't there? You have to admit, Claudio.
Yeah, yes. It's...
If we sat here on the 3rd of January next year and said, well, we've got a 14-point lead, we're nailed on, aren't we?
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'd have to point out that we had that lead in 1964.
And there's been other teams in similar situations have completely screwed up, haven't they?
Yeah.
When it looked harder to lose a title than win it.
Yes.
And they've come unstuck. But hopefully that won't happen this season. We'll just keep it going. There was another question that came in. There's nothing better when you're trying to cook your Saturday dinner and you get a phone call from Rich Hoverson to say, he does this phone a friend thing where I feel like I'm on Millionaire sometimes. And he said, so when's the last time we as a top 6 team beat another top 6 team? And straight away, I thought of home matches because an away match, an away team who's in the top six, and we're in the top six. When's the last time we've beaten one? And I thought, what a question, because all of a sudden my mind went a blank, and you have to go back a fair bit, don't you, Jim? It's not as simple as I thought it'd be.
No, I don't even. I didn't try Grok, but that's my usual port of call for those sort of questions. I don't think Grok would have been able to answer that one. Do you?
No.
Um,
Yeah.
So I had to do some delving. It took me a good hour to find them. Well, again, you see, we've been so rarely in the top six, haven't we?
Yes. And then you got to play somebody away who's in the top six.
Yeah. And I think Rich put the proviso on it couldn't be the playoff games, because obviously we won at Middlesbrough and Notts County in the playoffs, which would have met his criteria, but those weren't counted. So eventually I found it, and it's a famous game, actually.
Yeah.
A famous game at Blackburn in 1993.
What's interesting about this, Jim, is that I forgot we were in the top six because, as you know, the news was all about Blackburn that night, wasn't it? For a
It
particular
certainly
reason.
was. It certainly was, yeah. Radio 5 couldn't get enough of it, could they?
Exactly, yeah.
I'm just going to call up the league table that before at the start of play that night. Hang on, I need to log in.
Have to bear with the silence a minute while Jim logs in. This is all live, even though we're recording.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it was the season that Mick Quinn joined us in the November and had that fantastic start, didn't he?
Yeah.
He just couldn't stop scoring goals. And I seem to remember it dried up a little bit after Christmas. Well, we had the Liverpool and Villa wins over Christmas, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then we had we lost at home to Forest early in the new year. Then we beat Oldham on the 23rd of January, 3-0 at home to go sixth. So on the 23rd of January, the top six looked like this: Man United with 44, Villa with 44, Norwich with 42, Blackburn with 41, Ipswich with 36, and Coventry 36. So that's an interesting top six, isn't it? Four of them are now in the second division.
I know, and it's interesting because, like I said, when you look back at it, a lot of Cov fans probably would have forgotten we were in the top six that season.
Yeah. Well, when you think Arsenal were below us, Chelsea were below us, Liverpool, Tottenham, Leeds were below us, and Forest were bottom of the table. So fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
So, right, that was the Saturday, the 23rd. It was FA Cup weekend, so ours was the only game on that weekend. And on the Tuesday night, we were away to Blackburn. So Blackburn on 41 points. I think if they'd beaten us 3-0, they would have gone top on goal difference. They'd have gone above Man United at the top. And I do remember it was Alan Green on Radio 5 who just could not get enough of Blackburn Rovers, and it was as though we were just lambs to the slaughter. We were going to get buried because Blackburn was so good. Um, it was pre Shearer Blackburn.
Yeah.
So who was centre forward for them that night?
Oh. Sutton came after Shearer, didn't he?
Yeah.
Who would have been centre forward?
You probably won't get it. I'll tell you. It was Roy Wegerle.
Blimey.
And it was before they'd really started to splash the cash. They did have Tim Sherwood.
Colin Henry was in defence, wasn't he?
Colin Hendry. They had Mike Newell. And they had Gordon Cowans. I'd forgotten Cowans ever played for Blackburn. And there's Stuart Ripley, who was a very good right winger, wasn't he? Shock of blonde hair. So I don't know if you go on YouTube, you can watch like a 1 minute 50-second highlights, but there's also a 10-minute highlights. It's really very good to watch.
We played really well.
We did. We had a few close shaves, but there were some fantastic goals, especially Lee Hurst. The second goal was an absolute rocket. And John Williams he got the third. It was a very good goal. And we were 3-1 up and coasting. And then Colin Hendry got a header at the far post, and we were hanging on a bit, weren't we?
Yeah.
I think they had chances to equalise, and then Mickey Quinn came up and scored his usual 2 goals in the last 10 minutes to make it a very exaggerated goal line, wasn't it? Score line.
Yeah. But yeah, that's 32 years ago.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. 32 years ago.
That's pre-Oasis. It probably shows you where he went as a club, doesn't it? Really, it's not happened very often.
Yeah.
But even in the lower divisions,
that was Bobby Gould's season, wasn't it? It was a good season. We went 5th after that. Then we usual City. You win away in midweek. You have what looks like an easy home game. Wimbledon at home. You lose 2-0. Typical City, isn't it? But then we went to Middlesbrough and won 2-0. We went 4th in the table in February. That must be some record in the top flight.
Well, I think this is when. So is Bobby Gould and Phil Neal was the assistants at the time?
Yeah.
And I think this is about the same time where they had the forum at the Learfrit. There's footage I read, and they were talking about trying to get into Europe. There was high hopes, I think, in February that they could do it.
Yeah.
And I think, yet again, it didn't go to plan, did it?
No, well, after we went 4th, we only won one of our next 8 games. And if I remember rightly, Kevin Gallagher was sold, wasn't he, to Blackburn? And of course we got Wegerle in part exchange. We had an awful home game with Sheffield United where they beat us 3-1 and we looked dreadful. And then
I'm sure Sheffield played in that fluorescent green kit. They looked like stewards. It was the brightest kit I've ever seen. It was a horrible lime green thing. It was.
But we were still 7th with 5 games to go, and then we we got 2 draws in the last 5 games, and ended up 15th. I think that was the year we played Leeds on the final day, and we dropped 3 places in the last 10 minutes, didn't we?
We were 3-1 up. They the pitch invasion and everything. Was it Rod
Yeah, we were
Wallace?
3-1 up, and didn't Wegley try a pass back from the halfway line,
Yeah,
and Rod Wallace
Yeah,
popped in, and yeah, that was the day the Cop was demolished, wasn't it?
yes. But yeah, it's just a shame, really, isn't it? Because it did look promising in February. But hey ho, we move on, as they say. Well, and moving on, I've got my little question, if I can ask it.
Oh,
And so-
just a correction, Claudio. You said to me, does that make this current run the 3rd longest? And no, it doesn't actually. That famous 37-38 season, we were top from 13th of September to Christmas Day, which is 103 days. So the current run is the 4th longest.
So we need at least another couple of months, don't we?
Well, how many days would it be if we carried on being top till the end of the season?
Oh yeah,
We might get the record.
can you imagine?
Go on then. What's your question?
Well, we've got West Brom coming up, and we didn't play West Brom a lot because obviously, let's be real here, West Bromwich Albion, in terms of Midland clubs, are one of the biggest. One of the first 12. Well, they were the original 12, weren't they? And I don't think I've ever really been in that much trouble, apart from the mid 80s where they dropped down to the 3rd division, I think. But yeah, so we hardly played them. Now, I was looking at the record. What I found strange was, so between 67 and 69, we beat them 5 times out of 6, which is incredible, really, because of where we'd come from and where West Brom were. And then from 1970 to about 1986, possibly, I think, one of the worst records against any club. I worked out 5 wins, which you probably went to all of them, 11 draws, and you've probably seen all these, and 17 losses, of which we've had some hammerings, haven't we, in those losses?
We have.
Apart from the 7-1, we've had a couple of 6-1s, I think, in there. Some 5. I mean, I went pre-season friendly in 1976. They'd been promoted with, was it Johnny Giles, the manager, in 75?
Yeah.
So we lived in Lower Gornal. We're in the Black Country, and my dad said, "Oh, we'll go and see the City. They've got a friendly at the Hawthorns," and I think we lost 5-1. And I think from that time onwards, they were just. I just feared West Bromwich Albion. They used to rock up at Highfield Road with their green and yellow away striped shirts. They used to look absolutely enormous compared to our team and walk away with the 3 points normally.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, your memories of us playing against West Brom, are there any highlights or any, apart from the 7-1, which obviously isn't a highlight, but any games that stand out for you? Any momentous games?
I remember obviously, I think the first time I went to the Hawthorns was in the first season in Division 1, when we won our only away game at the Hawthorns with Ernie Hannigan goal on a sort of partially snow-covered pitch. I remember in those days, everything went through Jeff Astle. You know, he was the pivot of their team, scored all the goals. He was one of the best strikers in the first division at the time. And I remember John Tudor, who was a striker with City. He, because of injury, he was drafted. He was drafted to play at centre half. Had an absolute brilliant game against Astor, won everything in the air, and that was really the reason for our victory. but as it was the only away win that season. What other games? Well, then I think the following season we got hammered 6-1. One of those nights. Whenever we've been hammered there, if I was thinking about this today, that they seemed like that game we had against QPR this season. Like every time, well, you didn't have that many shots, but they all went in. And Bomber Brown used to seemed to score every time, at least one. And then after that, it was Cunningham and Ali Brown always seemed to score.
Big Cyril.
Yeah. And the other thing about the Hawthorns I do remember is we played in some interesting kits there.
Yes.
Obviously, the famous 7-1 or infamous 7-1 loss in 78, where they wore the chocolate brown.
Yeah.
But I remember them playing in 69-70 when we switched to the green and black stripes. The new kit hadn't arrived from the manufacturer.
Okay.
So they had to make do with a sort of a lime green shirt. It wasn't fluorescent. It was very pleasant, actually. I liked it. With black shorts and black socks. It was quite fetching. And we went to the Hawthorns and won 1-0 in that kit. I think Jeff Blockley got the winner. And then the other kit, I think it was the first time we wore the yellow egg timer kit.
Oh, yes.
Which was quite a rare one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That would have been 79. Was it 79? Yeah. We lost 2-1. We played really well. It was a League Cup tie, I think. Tommy English scored an early goal, and John Weil got one soon afterwards. And who gets the winner, of course? Tony Brown, penalty. We've had so many penalties. We've given away so many penalties there.
Oh, we did in recent seasons, didn't we? Where Ben Wilson saved it in the last second, didn't he?
Yes.
Did we wear the red kit, the one where we couldn't wear the kit on the Talbot kit on TV, and we in the quarter final when we lost 2-0?
Yeah, we did.
That was a dreadful game. Awful conditions.
I think the best game and the best performance was in 77-78 season. We drew 3-3. It was a brilliant game. We wore the red egg timer kit, and John Truick scored for them early on. Mick Coote with a penalty equalised. Ian Wallace put us ahead, 51 minutes. John Truitt got a second, 70 minutes. John Weil again, 78 minutes. And we looked like we were gonna lose. And then John Beck got an equaliser, came on as substitute, scored 3 minutes after he came on, 4 minutes from the end.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and they had Brian Robson at right back.
Wow. That's
Interesting. They had a good team though. Tony Godden, Brian Robson, Derek Statham, Tony Brown, John Weil, Ali Robertson, Mick Martin, Ali Brown, Cyril Regis, John Truick, and Willie Johnson.
Yeah, they were a really good side in the late 70s, early 80s. So, and always easy to watch, weren't they? They're always, of course, when Big Ron was there, they were really entertaining.
Big Ron was the manager that day. It was a cracking match.
Yeah, because I mean, they play the way I think Frank Lampard wants to play now, is basically just go and get some goals, basically. But that's two absolutely huge defenders, didn't they, with Ali Robertson and John Weil at the back.
Yeah.
But I can remember I think 79 they came to high. I think we'd gone, Jim. The start of the season, I think 79. I'm sure we hadn't lost at home until the Christmas period, when games were getting called off and we were playing, and we had 3 home games in a row. I think Spurs, Man City, and West Brom. I think we lost all 3, all by 3-0 or 3-1. But I just say, when West Brom turned up, you just felt like you're going to lose. It was terrible. They just seemed so much better than us.
Yeah, it was. You got the year right. It was 79, and it was. You're right. We had a long unbeaten run.
Yeah,
didn't we? I think in this, obviously 77-8, we were a very strong team. We only lost a couple of home games. I think they were early season, and we were good home side in the early part of 78, 79, and then it was actually February.
February was it?
Yeah, and we played. We lost 3-1 at home to Tottenham, 3-0 at home to Man City, and then 3-1 at home to West Brom. Yeah.
You remember?
Yes, and there were some good cup ties that same season. That 78-9, we played them in the cup in the 3rd round in January. I think the game was postponed on the Saturday. We played them in a night game, and it was an icy pitch. 38,000 crowd. You know, it was we had a big following there. They come out for the big games, and we drew 2-2 with them. And then we went to the Hawthorns, and it was just another collapse. We lost 4-0 at the Hawthorns.
Yeah. I was there for that one.
Yeah. So, so let's hope we can end on the winning side on Saturday and stay top.
Yeah.
Well, we will be top.
Yes.
Discuss.
Well, I'm just hoping Blues do us a favour. Hopefully, no, not Blues. I was trying to think who Middlesbrough were playing. Can't remember now. But I think we just keep plodding along, hopefully, and we'll keep getting the results. Jim, I really enjoyed that tonight. That was really good.
It was good.
But I do need to ask you about how you're getting on with the archive, because I know.
I thought you'd never ask.
No, it's there. I've written it down. Ask about the archive.
Yeah, so we're making fabulous progress. This is for anybody who doesn't know. We had our skybluearchive.co.uk website, which had a fantastic database of every game the club had played, and with lineups, scorers, attendances, programs, pictures, everything. And we had it basically wiped out by the providers, sadly, last summer. And we've been trying very, very hard to recover all that data. It's meant keying in every single match for 100 seasons worth of matches. And we're about 45% of the way there, making fabulous progress, putting the games in. It's a manual input of data, but we've had some excellent volunteers. We've got half a dozen volunteers who are working diligently away, putting up the match database. But I'm really appealing for any fans out there who fancy a bit of data input. You'll get a little bit of training on how to do it, and it would be a great help if we could get some more volunteers. So please drop me a line, claryborton@gmail.com, and we're hoping to get the website up and running early in the new year, and it's going to take us further time to recover some of the other stuff, but we've made this the priority to get the database up and running. So please, if you're that way inclined and have got a couple of hours, even if it's a couple of hours a week to spare, and you've got a computer, and you'd like to help us out, we'd really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, if you contact Jim at claryborton@gmail.com, or even myself, I mean, you know where I am. You'll catch me on most social things, social media and all the rest of it, and pass your details on. And also, if you've got any more questions for Jim and myself, and hopefully we can bring you more shows about the, which we will do anyway, the Sky Blue history and all the rest of it. Jim, it's been fantastic. Oh, one last thing, museum. Any more on that? Any more chats with Doug? I've got a meeting with him soon, so I could always chuck in a hint.
No, I think, as I've said the last time we discussed it, I think he's got enough on his plate with the, taking over the stadium, and it's on his list. That's what I'll say. It's on his list. So we've got plenty to do with the historians working in the archive, and so Doug, it's on Doug's list. So I'm confident we'll get somewhere.
Fantastic. Well, like I says, I've really enjoyed that tonight, Jim. I think it's a really interesting chat about our history, and lots of ups. In fact, it's all very positive.
Yes. Yes.
So next week we're not, are we? Because we've got a game, I think.
A Borough away, isn't it?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That's an up as well, because we've done pretty well in recent years. That's okay, isn't it?
Yeah.
So basically, a good night from me, and
a good night from me,
and a good night from Jim. Yes.
Company dismissed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Lovely.